Today, I'd like to talk about the role of the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master role is something that I've been excited about since I first heard about Scrum way back in 2003. And I've been a Scrum Master myself several times. I've also coached many Scrum Masters, and I believe that the Scrum Master role is one of the most misunderstood and probably poorly implemented roles in any agile kind of environment. Being a Scrum Master requires a set of skills that are all related to influence, influencing change in the way that people work. Now, Scrum itself is a framework that's designed to elicit the most productivity and effectiveness out of a team doing work to develop a product. And the problem is that most organizations are not actually set up to develop products well. They have all sorts of obstacles, impediments, mostly in the form of bureaucracy, but there can be also things in terms of skill sets and technology that also cause problems with developing products. So the Scrum Master role is kind of the key that unlocks the potential of Scrum. It's the catalyst that is designed to change the organization to make really amazing product development possible. So the Scrum Master role therefore is about change. So let's think about this practically. Many Scrum Masters in organizations currently are focused on basically what I think of as administrative duties, making sure that a team has, the Scrum events like the sprint planning meeting and the daily Scrums, whatever you call them, the sprint review and the retrospective. The Scrum Master is also often responsible for basically tracking a team's work inside of some sort of tool like Jira or Azure DevOps. Again, these things are relatively easy, and many Scrum Masters do these things to serve their team and their organization, and that's a good foundation, but it's not really the essence of the Scrum Master role. So one of the things that is a key part of being a good Scrum Master is observing your team and understanding each and every team member in order to serve the team, serve the product owner, and serve the organization. So these three areas of service are identified in Scrum as being the core responsibilities of the Scrum Master role. What does it mean to serve the team? Let's start there. So we've already talked about the administrative stuff, and that's part of it. But there are some pieces that are, let's say, a little bit more difficult, that require some thought and attention and experience and learning. The most obvious is guiding the team to have effective retrospectives. This is one of my favorite topics. There are so many different retrospective techniques. Imagine, for example, that as a new Scrum Master, you wanted to learn all the different retrospective techniques by trying a new one every sprint with your team. And let's say your sprints are 1 week long, which is a little short. Most teams are 2 weeks, but 1 week is also good. So you decide, okay, new retrospective technique every single sprint. Well, if you collect them all up, there are about 200 to 250 documented retrospective techniques. How many sprints is that? That's 4 years of sprints just to practice each retrospective technique once. Holy cats. So, just with that one little piece of being a Scrum Master and serving a Scrum team, you know that there's a lot of learning to do. Now, in real life, of course, there's many retrospective techniques that won't be particularly applicable to your team. That's fine. You can do, different combinations every sprint. But being aware of this is really important. There's a classic book that every Scrum Master should read called Agile Retrospectives. This is a fantastic starting place reference for you if you're a Scrum Master. If you haven't read that book, it is really essential to getting to be a professional level Scrum Master. All right, now, another aspect of serving the Scrum team is making sure that when the team raises impediments or obstacles to how they're working, that you as a Scrum Master track those things and do everything in your power to assist. Now, not every obstacle is going to be something that you personally as a Scrum Master solve. Okay? There's many obstacles that are going to be obstacles related to, for example, administration or bureaucracy, things related to skill sets. And as a Scrum Master, your job is to find the key that unlocks each of those things and opens the door so it's no longer an obstacle. I'll give you some examples. Supposing on your Scrum team, you discover that there's always a particular type of work that is left over at the end of the sprint because no one gets around to it. So either in a retrospective or during one of the daily scrums or just ad hoc, one of your team members says to you, hey, Scrum Master, we're really having a problem with this type of work. Can you help us with this obstacle? This is an obstacle. So you're going to explore the problem. You're going to say, well, do we have the right skills to do this work? Is it work that is really unenjoyable and people are just, kind of ignoring it and procrastinating about it? And if so, how can we make it better? Is it work that could be automated, that we can spend just a little bit of time so that it goes much more efficiently with higher quality and people don't have to worry about it? Is it work that can and should be outsourced, right? With someone who's kind of let's call it a more robotic contractor, right? Someone who doesn't have to be part of the self-organizing team, who can be an expert in some piece of that work and just do it very rote and very quickly compared to anyone else on the team. Is it work that maybe just doesn't need to be done at all, but it's part of the bureaucracy somehow and you need to be granted an exemption so that you don't have to do it? There's so many possibilities. And as a Scrum Master, this is a big part of your job, is to look at those things and over the course of sometimes many sprints, gradually chip away at these obstacles, gradually open the door, gradually make it so that the team is focused much more on value delivery and much less on the work that doesn't seem to make sense, no one wants to do, no one knows how to do. So that's some examples of serving the team. So as a Scrum Master, you serve the team, you also serve the product owner. The product owner is, of course, a team member, so part of serving the team is serving the product owner, but there's some special things about serving the product owner. Probably the most important and the thing that most organizations really struggle with is actually delivering every sprint valuable results into the hands of customers, users, or other stakeholders. This incremental delivery, and by the way, it should actually be more than every sprint, but even just getting to every sprint is often a huge challenge for organizations. This is the key to serving the product owner, to get the Scrum team to a state where, with the environment they're working with, the tools and technology they're working with their skill sets, with dependencies, that every single sprint results in some gift of value to the customers of the organization or the rest of the organization. This gift of value empowers the product owner, because when you do that, the product owner gets real feedback. The product owner gets feedback from customers and users about the product, and that feedback is based on reality. It's not based on some demo. It's not based on reports. It's not based on speculation. It is real. And it's that real feedback that in turn allows the product owner to maximize productivity. Without that feedback, the product owner is speculating, they're guessing. And we all know, hopefully, that guessing about the future is not a very good way to go when you're talking about complex environments. So you want that feedback loop. The Scrum framework demands that feedback loop. And if you don't have it, that is the first and foremost urgent priority for you to serve your product owner. Now, there are other ways, of course, as well. For example, a product owner often needs to engage stakeholders in various ways and may not have the facilitation tools to do that effectively. So you can learn as a Scrum Master many, many different facilitation techniques that allow you to help the product owner in their engagement with stakeholders and with the team. A really simple example of this is, some of the agile estimation techniques that can help your business stakeholders guide the product owner on prioritization. This is a very common problem in large enterprise organizations. We have so many competing priorities for the work that needs to get done. And as a Scrum Master, by learning some good facilitation techniques for estimating business value or estimating priority, then you can help your product owner very tactically, sprint by sprint, to make sure that the priorities are set well. These are just a couple examples of the Scrum Master serving the product owner. Now, every organization is going to be different, so it's hard to say, in any great detail, but exactly how. Every organization is different. So the third component of the Scrum Master role of serving the organization is the one that actually takes the most maturity. One of the things that I really like to recommend for Scrum Masters, if possible, is to have experience at different kinds of organizations, different industries, and especially different sizes. If you as a Scrum Master have worked in a very small startup, in a mid-sized business, and in a large enterprise, then that experience can give you a huge amount of fertile ideas on how to serve your organization, regardless of its size. Likewise, when you cross industries, obviously, Scrum is very prominent in technology organizations of various kinds, but it's now starting to take root in other types of business. Marketing especially is particularly prominent, and getting some exposure to Scrum in other industries can help you bring back the wisdom of experience to become an effective servant for your organization. There's one set of techniques that a lot of people in the Scrum community don't talk about that can really make a difference here, and that is the Kanban method. Essentially, this is a tool for looking at the whole system and finding ways to optimize at the organizational level rather than just at the team level. Yes, team optimization is valuable and can help. But as a Scrum Master, being able to see the big picture, to understand the flow of work through processes, the relationship between different parts of the organization, how budgeting, finance, legal, HR affect those processes. Where does work get committed to and why? What are the different types of work that are flowing through that system? What are the different ways that we have to service that work, if it's urgent or not, if there's deadlines? All of these things are part of understanding the Kanban method. Now, learning about the Kanban method, there's many different sources for this, and I strongly recommend that you start with some reading. There's some fantastic books about the Kanban method. But understanding essentially systems thinking is a key skill for a Scrum Master to be able to serve their organization. Even beyond the system, or in a sense, underlying the system, is organizational culture. There's a fantastic book that I recommend every Scrum Master read called The Corporate Culture Survival Guide. Also, just in case you're wondering, we have a fantastic corporate culture assessment tool that can really help you as a Scrum Master. Either way, you really need to get into the weeds of what are the underlying assumptions inside of an organization that contrast maybe with the explicit requirements and stated objectives and corporate speak about teamwork and innovation and so forth. And what are the things that you actually see happening in the organization? And then from that picture, understanding corporate culture, you can start to be systematic about the culture that you create in your team and how that can be influenced and spread throughout the rest of the organization. So those three services are core to being a Scrum Master. The role of a Scrum Master is very challenging, and unfortunately, most organizations mix it up in some way or another. So there's some common pitfalls that I'll mention very briefly. A Scrum Master is not a project manager, please. I've got a video about that that you should look at. It is a really bad distraction from the Scrum Master's true responsibilities to be managing a project. Likewise, it's very common to have a Scrum Master serve multiple Scrum teams. And this breaks the Scrum value of focus. And I just really strongly want to emphasize that there is so much that a Scrum Master can and should be doing, even just working with one team, that when you split them to 2, 3, 5, sometimes even 10 teams, basically a Scrum Master becomes completely ineffective and you're throwing away your money as an organization. Don't do that. There's a lot of other pitfalls. I've got some myths of Scrum videos that I hope that you'll check out. And I hope that this was a great, helpful introduction to the Scrum Master role. I strongly recommend that I hope this was a great introduction to the Scrum Master role. I hope you consider attending our Scrum Master Bootcamp if you want to dive much deeper, especially into the activities of a Scrum Master as they serve the Scrum team. There's so much there. And our Scrum Master Bootcamp is really designed to give you that deep dive and come out of a 2-day training with amazing skills that you're going to be able to take back and transform your team. Hope to see you in person someday. Take care. Thank you. Oh yeah, and like and subscribe, right? Yeah.